former president that had committed this many provable criminal acts.
But what are the provable criminal acts, I guess?
There's 10 other people's houses that probably should have been raided before his.
We are seeing how they are more blatantly in broad daylight being weaponized to target political opponents of those in power.
We cut child poverty in America by 40% in the first year.
Lots of claims still going around, 0% inflation still out there. Apparently, Kamala Harris cut child poverty by 40% in the first year, and then it went back up. Nobody knows what Donald Trump is going, why the FBI raided Donald Trump's house. People on the street in New York says, yeah, there's so many provable offenses and can't name any. And the IRS, all that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daily Caller Live starts right now. Like, right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob. That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from my parents' house in beautiful Chino Hills, California. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. On today, it is August 11th, the year of our Lord 2022. And a lot of new stuff, but not a lot of new stuff. What happened in the last couple days is still baffling to everybody. The FBI, spoiler alert, has still not made a statement of why specifically they went in and what they specifically found. It's all still kind of hearsay. But who knows? Who knows what's happening? Nobody knows. Maybe we'll never know, which is a terrible problem for the United States, especially when you factor in the political angles of it. If you're not cut up to speed, I don't know why you're watching this show, but briefly, what it looks like is the Biden administration utilized the DOJ and the Justice Department to raid not only the former president. A lot of people are saying the former president got raided. In reality, not in reality, there's a lot of other components to it. But the biggest thing that I'm thinking of is not only is he the former president, he's most likely the front runner to challenge the current president. That's a bigger deal. If Jimmy Carter got raided around the same time in his post being the president, nobody was like, yeah, Jimmy Carter's going to run again. Like that wasn't a thing that was going to happen. In this particular instance, I think the more important component is not that he's a former president, it's that he's the presumptive front runner to the current president in the next election. Wow, went a while there. You know what I'm going to do today? Because today's my Friday-ish. I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna start off with the funny stuff. Usually we send the funny stuff till later, or we don't do it until the end of the show. Kind of end it on a brighter note. But we're going to start with this one. This is a guy outside of Trump's Manhattan building, Trump Tower, talking about how many, of course, there are so many provable things. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to just show you what it is. If you wouldn't mind, would appreciate you clicking the little like button, the little share button down here, or reacting in whatever way you feel appropriate. Maybe that's a comment. Really helps if you engage with the post. Again, really, really appreciate you doing that. Helps us stay in business doing what we're doing. There's a couple of thousand of you watching and like 40 of you have clicked the little like button. So appreciate you just clicking that. Without further ado, here's this hilarious clip that we generally don't start the show off with hilarious clips, but here we go.
Is this unprecedented to arrest a former president for not turning in documents?
The former president that had committed this many provable criminal acts.
But what are the provable criminal acts, I guess?
Provable criminal acts. Well, I'm done talking.
I don't know. So that was from Newsmax. There was a bunch of people protesting outside of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Well, there's never been a president with this many provable criminal acts. I'm not going to go there. I was going to say, like all of XYZ that Obama did, all of XYZ that Joe Biden has done. We won't go there right now. We're just going to, I don't want to say mock the stupidity, but there's really nothing better that we're doing here is mock the stupidity of a person saying there are so many provable acts. Oh, cool. Name one. Well, and then can't think of anything. Sounds kind of par for the course here. But speaking of the FBI going through the president's house, former President Trump's house in Mar-a-Lago, the most interesting thing, I think, about all of this, and this is a wider 30,000-foot view conversation, the most interesting thing is how people are interacting with their presumptive sides, right? Obviously, because it's Donald Trump, a bunch of people on the right side of the aisle are like, yeah, what the heck is the FBI doing? Let's abolish the FBI, some people are saying. We'll get to this story really quick. This Nina Turner versus Jimmy Dore is exactly what that is. One of the most interesting things is seeing the sides kind of morph into different things. Now, let me just read you some of the tweets from this Twitter interaction between someone named Nina Turner, which I was unaware who Nina Turner is until like 2 weeks ago when she started tweeting incessantly about canceling student debt. And then I retweeted probably 50 of her tweets, quote tweeting them saying, yeah, and my mortgage and my car payment and all of the debt that I have ever, my Target credit card, let's cancel that too. Anyways, I was unaware who this person is, but apparently I guess she's kind of a big deal. I don't know, and I apologize for understating it. And then Jimmy Dore is a huge YouTube streamer. Now, this is, again, an interaction that's kind of indicative of the entire scope of the left versus the right versus the FBI versus the truth and all of that sort of stuff. Nina Turner, big-time lefty person, tweeted this: my prediction of the fallout of the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago is that we're probably going to see a bunch of MAGA Republicans call to abolish the FBI. Not entirely incorrect. Now, Jimmy Dore then points out something, and in further interviews pointed out something again that, again, is fascinating just in terms of the juxtaposition that the sides themselves have taken. Jimmy Dore tweeted at her, the lefties cheer on the FBI. When lefties cheer on the FBI, you know they're serious about being a Democrat. Essentially saying that progressives and the left, whatever that means, again, if you're a fan of the show and watch routinely, you know that I'm not a huge proponent of labels. But people on the lefty side of the aisle historically have been very, very anti the FBI. And now we have lefties. Again, we're using these terms because that's the best way to describe people as of right now. Lefties are now proponents of the FBI, and the conservatives, quote unquote, are proponents of not the FBI. In the 70s, or even throughout J. Edgar Hoover's reign on the FBI, it was flipped. She makes a point down here later on, and we'll get to it in a second, but just for the longest time, lefties have been anti-bigger Federal Bureau of Investigation, especially when you look at the Black Panthers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Some of those are more egregious than others. But all throughout recent modern history, quote unquote, the left has been anti-big established government bureaucracies and agencies, not from a social welfare program, but from the FBI, the CIA, the military. All of these agencies were like, left was like, no. They bugged Martin Luther King Jr.'s telephones. That wasn't cool. They did XYZ to Malcolm X. That wasn't cool. And now for some reason, because it helps their party, some supposed lefties are really just Democrats who put party in front of their value system and are now proponents of the FBI. Now, in the same token, a lot of quote-unquote conservatives or Republicans in the 60s and 70s really liked the FBI going after people that they didn't like. Their authoritarian side showed a little bit, and now that's flipped. They're anti-big FBI because nobody can trust the FBI, for good reason, by the way. That's not without saying. The whole thing has reversed, and what Jimmy Dore is pointing out is, hey, just so you know, you have people now to your side and slapping them in the face because of it. Your side being the, hey, the FBI shouldn't have this much power. I would like to say, or like to think, that I'd probably be pretty consistent. I would be anti the FBI tapping Martin Luther King's phone, because I don't think the evidence that he was in bed with communists, not in bed physically. I understand that there's a lot of that stuff that went on with MLK Jr. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in league with communists. I don't think there's enough evidence to show that Martin Luther King Jr. was in league with the communists to have the FBI tap his phones. And also now, I doesn't seem like there's enough evidence for the FBI to raid President Trump's home. You can have both of those thoughts in your head at the same time, and apparently you would have flipped sides. Apparently in the 70s, I would have been called a lefty for not wanting the FBI to do what the FBI is still currently doing. The FBI hasn't changed. My thoughts hasn't changed. I wasn't around in the 70s, but a lot of people's thoughts haven't changed, except for the establishment parties who have now, for some reason, flipped sides. I think that was a long-winded way of getting to the next thing that Nia Turner tweeted. This, let me be clear. So this is, again, indicative of everything here. Jimmy Dore, this guy, the podcaster, tweeted back saying the problem, yeah, you're choosing party over your values. People are coming to your side and you're kicking them for it. And then this lady goes with this. When Jimmy Dore knocks a black progressive woman for pointing out conservatives' hypocrisy when it comes to the FBI, you know he's serious about being anti-black and protecting conservatives. Okay. Roll your eyes. Now we're just playing the race card, which is ridiculous. And I can continue to go on with this back and forth exchange. I just thought it was fascinating that, again, historically speaking, lefties have been against the FBI raiding people's homes. And now, because it's President Trump, the true lefties, the Matt Taibbis of the world, I'm sure Bill Maher on HBO tomorrow is going to talk about this. I'm sure those lefties, in the sense of traditional classical liberals, will be just as against this as they were against COINTELPRO. And if I'm talking over your head, I'm sorry, COINTELPRO, we won't get into that. Basically, the FBI overstepping its bounds throughout the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, I believe. I would imagine your classical lefties that have held those beliefs throughout the entire thing are also going to defend the idea that the FBI didn't seem like they had enough evidence to raid President Trump. But the point being made here is that some people are choosing their party over their value system when it comes to now being on the FBI's side. All right, that was super long-winded, so sorry about that if I lost you or got bored at all, but it's, I don't know. That's just an interesting thing to point out. Also, this is kind of interesting. We won't talk too much about this. There's a lot of news about the Internal Revenue Services. Again, kind of a weird thing of lefties are now wanting more people to get audited. That's weird. Now, they're making the claim that it's just billionaires, the 600, 700, 800 billionaires that exist in the United States. Well, those are them. Now, this is complicated too. Just FYI, if you're watching this, if you're brand new to watching this show, I don't pretend to be entirely sure on everything that we're talking about. I just want to bring some things that are interesting and hopefully spark conversation. Now, a lot of people, especially on the right side of the aisle, are freaking out about 87,000 IRS agents, justifiably so. But at the same time, I think it should be pointed out that those 87,000 agents are over the course of 10 years. They're not going to hire them tomorrow. So when you put it that way, it's like 8,700 IRS agents. I don't actually know what the IRS staffing is, but I would imagine a lot of people quit or retire out of the IRS agency. If they're an accountant, they probably go to the private sector and make way more money after a certain amount of time. I don't know how many people the IRS has to replace every single year, but when you're talking about an 87,000 level over 10 years, and that's really only about 9,000 per year, I don't know what attrition is, but that seems kind of reasonable. I'm not necessarily defending putting more money in the IRS. Don't believe that they're going to be billionaires. But at the same time, I also want to make it clear that you do have to fund the IRS. That's not, well, if we have the current tax system, which I don't agree with, then you do have to fund the IRS. I'm just talking about it mechanically, not necessarily from an opinion standpoint. But I thought this was freaking fascinating that Twitter posted in their little news about section. Oh, shoot. I probably didn't delete it. I probably put it in the wrong place. Oh, no, here it is. Twitter posted this big thing about this IRS thing that's getting so much attention on the right side, which, again, justifiably so. Twitter posted this: the Inflation Reduction Act and climate health care and tax passages was passed in the United States on August 7th, with its vote in the House. The Associated Press reports that the bill will increase the ranks of the IRS, but not create a mob of armed auditors looking to harass middle-class taxpayers, as some Republicans are saying. That remains to be seen. We have no idea. How would you trust the federal government to not do what they're not supposed to do because they never don't do what they say they're not going to do? Basically, what I'm getting at here is Twitter put out this big thing of fact check. No, the IRS isn't going to go after all of the middle-class conservative taxpayers. That's a big fat maybe. Tulsi Gabbard pointed out, shoot, now I'm blanking on the woman's name. Lois Lerner, who specifically went after conservatives in the IRS. So it's hard to believe that they wouldn't do that. But the big thing that I want to get to here is Twitter pointed out, and the Associated Press were fact-checking the fact that the IRS isn't creating a mob of people going after the middle class. In that fact check, they also continued to refer to the Climate Change Economics Healthcare Bill as the Inflation Reduction Act, of which it is not. So in the fact check, they called the thing a thing that it is not, which possibly discounts the entire fact check. Imagine if I said the doors on this Ferrari are off their hinges, and you look and the doors are off the hinges, but it's not a Ferrari, it's a minivan. Where do we go from there is what I'm getting at. Twitter puts out this big fact check thing. The Associated Press puts this big fact check thing out, but at the very headline of it says, well, the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're still calling it that. Literally nobody, Democrats, Republicans, independents, nobody thinks the Inflation Reduction Act has anything to do with inflation at all. It's like 2% of the bill, if any. They're giving more money to the IRS. They are spending more money on climate change and negotiating prices with Medicare. That has nothing to do with inflation. I don't know. Just trying to point out some fallacies here. Speaking of inflation, we saw this clip yesterday. We played it yesterday, but there's some interesting backlash from liberals trying to defend Joe Biden's 0% in July claims. Now, I want to play this video one more time. It's like 12 seconds. But this is Joe Biden yesterday with the inflation numbers that came out talking about, well, that's 0% inflation in July. That, of course, is not true. I gave the analogy yesterday. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read the analogy that I gave on Twitter. I know I talk about Twitter a lot. I don't really use Twitter all that much, but when I do, it's a cesspool of insanity. So anyways, the analogy that I gave on the show yesterday, I also basically said on the internet: if someone punches you in the face 91 times and then the next month only punches you in the face 85 times, chances are you're not going to say, sweet, my face punches went up by 0% and celebrate it. You still got punched in the face 85 times. Those numbers are accurate. Inflation in June was 9.1%, and inflation in July was 8.5%. Yet the Biden administration is claiming that it's 0% That's just not accurate. I want to play this clip, and then I want to talk about the rationale that people are using to try and defend that ridiculous statement from the president and why that rationale is wrong. Watch this clip. Also, if you haven't already, I'm seeing a couple thousand of you on the little ticker thing on either Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Would really appreciate it if you click the little like button, the little share button. You don't have to click the share button. I know people have friends that don't want to necessarily see this, but just a little reaction button really, really does help us out. And also just leave us a comment. What do you think about all of the craziness that is currently unfolding? All right, watch this clip, and then we'll talk about what the argument is on the other side and debunk it thoroughly. Check it out.
Zero. Today, we received news that our economy had 0% inflation in the month of July.
And that's Joe Biden said they have zero inflation in the month of July. Of course, that is not true. The CBO report, is it the CBO? I'm not sure who actually puts out the inflation numbers, but the inflation, United States inflation was up 8.5% year over year. Now, here's what a bunch of people are saying, and I want to brief you on this just in case you happen to be in a conversation with somebody over the weekend that repeats the nonsensical phrase that Joe Biden said, well, 0% inflation in July. We showed the graph yesterday of the New York Times where it's like up, and then like a tiny bit down. And that's what people are using to justify inflation. What they're saying is that, well, from June to July specifically, prices didn't increase. That's what the argument is. There's a big, long Bloomberg article that some guy used a bar graph to show that, well, look, yeah, inflation, prices didn't actually increase at all in July, which means then technically 0% inflation for the month of July. Here's the problem with that. Now, that's the argument from the other side trying to, again, back the president's ridiculous claim, which is, it must be a really tough job to have to do to always back the president's ridiculous claims because he makes so many of those ridiculous claims. The problem with that is what you're doing if you choose to believe that, well, since it went down, that means the prices didn't go up, therefore it was 0% inflation. The problem with that is you're creating a new metric by which to measure inflation. Inflation is measured consistently, historically, over the last year when inflation has been huge. It's measured year over year. That's how you measure it. You don't just get to change the metrics in which inflation is measured. Imagine if you were playing a baseball game. You have 9 innings. The baseball game is totaled, the score, the winner is determined by the total of the score scored within those 9 innings. That's the entirety of it. You don't get to say, well, we actually scored way more points in the 5th inning, so therefore we won the game. Well, no, you got outscored in every other inning. Actually, extrapolate that even further. You could have scored 8 runs in the 5th inning. 8 runs, you obliterated them. They only scored 1 run in the 5th inning. But if they scored 1 run every single inning, you still lost. Bottom line here is that there's a bunch of people trying to, again, change the way that inflation is calculated and say, whoa, from June to July, prices didn't increase, which also, I don't even know if that's true. That's the argument that they're making. I'm not even saying that that's true. If that is true, though, what I'm saying is, you can respond to that by saying you can't just switch the metric. You don't just get to say, oh, well, it's measured month by month. Well, okay, at that point, if we're going to change the way that we measure inflation, why don't we just change it to week by week? Actually, you know what, scratch that. Let's change it day to day or hour to hour. No, minute to minute. We're going to measure inflation minute to minute. From this minute to that minute, inflation rose 0%. Look at us. We did a great job. It is a dumb argument being made on their side. Lori says all semantics. Correct. That's it. But changing the way things are calculated and done is not something that is new to this administration in this current lefty culture. Want to know something else that's kind of, well, okay, so this is another interesting clip from Kamala Harris yesterday. But this is good news. This is actually fantastic news. According to the statistics that Kamala Harris threw out, childhood poverty should be completely abolished by 2023, mid 2023, if our numbers are correct. Kamala Harris said something ridiculous, and then I kind of did some digging in terms of what constitutes as poverty or what constitutes as the poverty line. And it actually is really interesting. I don't necessarily know that, well, let me play this clip from Kamala Harris. It's like 10 seconds. If you haven't already, click the little like button. There are more people watching now than have clicked the like button through the entire time. Would really appreciate you doing that. Wow. I'm sorry. I got distracted and I read a comment, and this is too funny. I'm going to censor it. I'm not going to bring it on the screen. But Ryan, in terms of changing the way you measure things, Ryan said, I'm going to start measuring a place that men have in centimeters instead of inches. That is a hilarious joke and very, very relevant. Ryan, I wish you didn't use the explicitive. I could bring it on the screen, but that's a very funny joke. Anyways, here's Kamala Harris touting some statistics that may or may not entirely be misleading. Watch this.
In our first year in office, we extended the child tax credit. You know that meant? We cut child poverty in America by 40% in the first year.
Yeah, so that's a pretty dang big claim. Basically, what she's saying is we cut child poverty essentially in half, or at least by 40%, in the first year alone. Wow, that's huge. Congratulations, if that were true. Also, it would probably set a precedent of, well, you could probably do 40% next year too, which would be 80% in 2 years. And then in 6 months, you could get that other 20%, in which you've completely eliminated childhood poverty by 100%. There's inflationary problems with those statistics, and that claim being that, well, the poverty line gets adjusted constantly based on who's below the poverty line. So I'm not entirely sure how you square that with your argument, but I found this interesting. This is from, I believe, Columbia did a study on this. The monthly childhood poverty rate increased 12%, or from 12% in December 21 to 17% in January 2022. That is when the childhood tax credit payments ended. So in a month, they're claiming that for the 4.9 percentage points, an increase of 40% in childhood poverty from December to January in 1 month was caused by the expiration of the monthly child tax credit payments. That's kind of interesting. At most, people got $300 a month for having a child, and that's if they were under 6 years old. If they were over that, I think it's like $250 or something like that. Bottom line is, at most, $3,600 a year the government was randomly giving to parents. I don't really know why we decided to do that, but the government decided to give $3,600 to parents. Now, what these statistics are saying is that the lack of $300 a month increased childhood poverty by 40%. One, we have to find out where the poverty line is. I think it's like, if it's a family of four, it's like $26,000 a year. So effectively, the government is subsidizing people. And when they stopped doing it, again, I'm just telling you what they're saying. They're saying that the government stopped subsidizing these people, and therefore the people that went under the poverty line increased by 40%. The numbers don't necessarily, or don't add up in my head. The federal government, from a 30,000-foot view standpoint, doesn't seem like paying $300 a month is going to have that massive of an impact, which would lead me to believe that some of the statistics being used here don't make a lot of sense. Now, maybe I'm missing something. But Kamala Harris, one, claiming that they lowered childhood poverty by 40% in a year, really seems a little far-fetched. And then Colombia reporting that, well, since the tax credit was eliminated, in just 1 month, the childhood poverty rate increased by 40%. It kind of seems, what I'm getting at ultimately is it kind of seems that some of these statistics might be being used for political purposes and not actually representative of how children are doing in the United States. Huh. That would be the first time anything like this has ever happened, other than all of the other times. Holy cow, I still have another thing to get to, and it looks like we're running up against the clock here. I want to get to this lastly to just kind of... So, remember Michael Brown? Kid that was shot and killed in Ferguson. You probably remember the Ferguson riots more than you remember him specifically. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to use any disparaging commentary here. People have some bad thoughts when it comes to Michael Brown. I think it's a bad situation. I wish none of it happened. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy when anybody gets killed, regardless of whether you agree with the cops or whether you agree with the person. Like, it would be great if the cops didn't have to shoot Michael Brown. Seems to be, I don't know. That's just what I think. I would like cops to not have to shoot anybody. I understand reasons why they have to, and those are justifiable, and that's fine. But I would like them to not have to. Anyways, a bunch of people are tweeting out the anniversary of the Michael Brown, his death was 8 years ago yesterday, I believe. And a bunch of people, including Congress people, were tweeting out a bunch of stuff, and I only got one. I thought I grabbed more. But Congresswoman Jayapal from Washington tweeted this, and I thought this was freaking fascinating, especially with the whole fact check culture going on. Today marks 8 years since Michael Brown was murdered by police in Ferguson, Missouri. She goes on to say, let's keep fighting to dismantle white supremacy so we can ensure racial justice for all, yada, yada, yada. According to, just so you know here, if anybody in the comment section wants to weigh in here on the Michael Brown situation, the bottom line here is we have a congresswoman tweeting that Michael Brown was murdered by police in Ferguson, Missouri. That's just flat out not true. Not like, oh, this is misleading, oh, this is this is that, this is this. Murder is a legal term. And she's saying that he was murdered by the police in Ferguson, Missouri. He was not murdered. Nobody was convicted of murder. And that's not also a claim of, oh, well, the justice system in Missouri is just completely flawed. No, the Obama Justice Department, what was the guy's name? I'm going to think of it. Eric something. I can only... Eric, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Who was Obama's attorney general? His first name was Eric, and I can only think of Eric Adams because we've been talking about him so much, the mayor of New York. Anyways, if anybody remembers Obama's attorney general that was named Eric, what his last name was, let me know in the comment section. But what I'm getting at here is the Obama DOJ, Eric Holder. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, George. Thank you, Sean. Wow, a lot of people. Dang it. All right. Okay. Now I feel like an idiot. They're just Holder. Bob, Carolyn, Faith, Holder. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. I know. Okay. I get it now. It's Eric Holder. Eric Holder, Obama's attorney general, and Obama's Justice Department looked into it themselves and said, yeah, not only was this not murder, but the autopsy shows that Michael Brown went for the police's gun, or at least that's what the evidence would indicate. So not only is this not a corrupt jury in racist Missouri, it's not that. It's just a flat-out lie that congresswomen today are still pushing. I don't know what we do with that. Now, I am against Twitter fact-checking things, because I think people need to build the fact-check muscle on their own. But at the same time, if they're gonna fact-check things, how come there was no fact-check on this tweet from a sitting congressperson saying that Michael was murdered by the cops. It's just factually and legally inaccurate. If you're going to put fact check stickers on a bunch of other people talking about whatever it is that they're talking about, it would seem that the blatantly obvious legal ones should also come with that fact check. And not only from a legal standpoint in terms of like a trial, but from the Obama DOJ, the Attorney General Eric Holder, looking into all of this themselves and saying, no, it wasn't murder. It would seem that a fact check sticker would be appropriate if you're going to try to put fact check stickers on things, which I don't think you should do. It is unbelievable the amount of people who commented saying Eric Holder, Eric Holder, Eric Holder, Eric Holder. It was Eric Holder. I appreciate you guys for being on top of that. I won't. Gabriel, who I think watches the show every day, I appreciate that, dude, said you will never forget his name again. Yeah, I won't. Say his name, Eric Holder. Anyways. All right. Hey, appreciate you tuning in, sticking around, checking out. I know we're still waiting for this, for the FBI to say literally anything about this whole raid on President Trump. It could be one of the worst political moves in the history of the universe. There was an article that I think was in Town Hall talking about Rand Paul potentially filing an impeachment against Merrick Garland, which actually, I don't know if impeachment can start in the Senate, but there would be enough people in the House. I think there would be enough Democrats. If it turns out that the FBI didn't really have anything other than document preservation in the archives of whatever documents they need to be archived, if that was the only thing that the FBI had to go into President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, I think you actually could get Democrats in swing districts in Congress and definitely in the Senate. I think Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema would sign up this immediate. John Tester in Montana, I think they would absolutely, if there was nothing other than archive retrieval, document retrieval, and there was an Merrick Garland for signing off on it or being aware of it, I think you could get Democrats on board to impeach him. That's just my thought. So we'll see what happens there. We're off tomorrow I'm going to be in Montana. If you're in, where am I going to be? The Great Falls / Fort Benton area of Montana. Actually, we're flying into Bozeman. Won't be spending a ton of time in Bozeman. But if you're in those areas, Great Falls, Bozeman, and Fort Benton, Montana, I don't know, come say hi. We'll be there the next couple days, my wife and I. So we will not be doing a show tomorrow, but we'll be back Monday morning, live and in prime time. And by prime time, I mean not prime time. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. I feel like today was kind of fun. I know I ranted a lot, but I don't know. Hopefully some of that information was somewhat useful. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB. Really appreciate you doing so. Instagram, Twitter, Getter, YouTube, Truth, all of the platforms. Would appreciate connecting with you on that. Yeah, we will see you Monday. Have a great weekend. If you haven't already, click the little like button, the little share button. Again, really, really helps us out. If you stuck around with us this long, I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, we will see you then. Anything that happens over the weekend, we will bring it to you Monday morning. God bless America.